All right, you guys. I started this channel to talk about AI as AI develops and sort of talk about philosophy with AI. You know, when it becomes more vocal and we can have conversations with it to see if AI is really going to start covering new ground and talking about it, old philosophical concepts and coming up with new concepts with AI. So far, from what I've seen, it reformulates old ideas very well. Whereas in the image space, generative AI in the image space for art, I really think it creates new value. Um, it actually transcends the capabilities that humans had before it. So I want to see this new value in philosophy, but I guess I haven't seen it yet, really. Or maybe that's just it. The way it formulates it is it. It's just doesn't. It's not as strikingly valuable as the image version of AI. When I started this channel, it was to try to teach about a universal value system, which is what we're going to need moving forward if trying to pull the entire world together under a necessary umbrella, the umbrella of human necessity, and looking at systems in order to do it, how AI is going to affect the world and how what we need to do control it. Because if we don't put controls on it in the way that it's implemented in the world, seemingly from what I've seen so far, all the value is just going to go to the rich, and the poor, or the people, let's just say not the poor, just the entire world that's not rich, the bottom 99%, are slowly just going to be crushed under the weight of a massive sifting of wealth up to the top. And from what I've seen in the studies that I've done so far, it's those with wealth that will gain more wealth because the systems themselves help you be more efficient in whatever it is you're doing. Yeah, you can create new businesses, you can create new wealth, but you're going to be facing the same kind of uphill battles that you were facing before AI came out. It's going to be difficult. The markets are saturated. So it's the people with wealth that are going to benefit right now and quickly, and they're going to dominate those markets. So that being said, I don't hold a lot of hope because the people that have money and have businesses in large numbers are only looking out for the subsistence of their own lives. They're not really, maybe there's a few exceptions to the rule that care about other people, but for the most part, the owners of these companies, the CEOs and the stakeholders will just allow everybody else to be crushed into dust. And they'll just blame it on them. Well, you're too stupid, you're too slow, whatever it is. There's no shortage of exceptions by people that have already. So this is AI. So AI will feed into the bottom. I mean, people will be able to buy a $15,000 robot. Eventually that robot will become more efficient and you'll be able to do house chores. That's how people at the bottom, their lives will become easier, and self-driving cars and things like that. But again, that's just making the amount of wealth that you have a little bit easier to tolerate. It's not really bringing you new wealth. And I don't expect that individuals are going to lease the robots they buy to companies, because the companies will already be leasing probably custom robots at that point. So I put this chart together to begin to talk about different kinds of formats and ideas, because as we move forward and we see things not working and we see things working, we need to build up a plan or some kind of idea incrementally, and we need to implement it incrementally to make it work, because it's so complex and so many factors. I know, like right now, I did a little research on WorldCoin before I started this video. WorldCoin has sort of stopped in its tracks. By the way, I did some research on the infrared camera they used to scan the iris just to make sure it was safe. That was my main concern in the beginning, and it does seem like it's safe. These infrared iris, they just take a picture of your eye basically using infrared, and it's very quick. I don't know what multiple scans would do to the eye, but anyway, it translates into digital data, which becomes a signature for you. So the biggest problem, and I've been through this before, I developed a democratic model that I put onto the internet 10 years ago, before all of this. Because in my mind, we could do an organically changing model without voting election cycles. You would just vote all the time, and you would vote on everything. and you would vote as much as you wanted. So the more effort you put in, the more your vote counted. And I built that, and it got hacked to death. Because I didn't have money to upkeep security, and it's all about security. And this is the problem that WorldCoin is having, is to keep your individual identity secure, to be able to identify you whenever you log in a foolproof manner. Because if that's not maintained, the integrity of the system it falls apart right out of the gate, because everybody's trying to defeat it immediately, especially when it has to deal with money. So WorldCoin, that's the first problem that we have to get over, is the security of individual identity and defeating people who want to misrepresent themselves. And that's a huge hurdle. And once that's won, then we can begin with the groundwork of a UBI, okay? So the UBI should be means testing costs money. It costs money to say, how much money do you make? What do you do? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, you can or can't get this UBI. So we have to look at the cost of means testing for the UBI. And it's the cheapest way to do it is to have no means testing and just distribute the UBI to everybody, and have a little tick box that says yes or no, I don't want it. If the people know they have a lot of money and they're not total jerks about it, they'll tick the box because they don't need it, right? And that's going to save means testing money. So UBI to everybody. But we have to target the lowest 52% of the world that lives under $10,000 per year, okay? Whatever we get in UBI in the beginning should directly go to these poor people in the world, the bottom 52%, and we should work our way up from the bottom. If we're ethical at all, if we're human beings, that's the way we should start. And so we start feeding into a UBI. Here, let me go to my graph here. So we have AI and robotics providers lease their robots to private corporations, okay? The organizations are going to be waiting for the cost of the robots to go down below human labor. Once the cost of robots goes down below human labor, it'll be cost effective for companies, let's say like Amazon, to start using robots in their warehouses. So the AI robotics providers provide robots to the organizations, they lease it, and then there's a cost difference. So somebody loses their job for $30K per year, right? So now the robots, they're leasing a robot for $15K, right? So they've just saved $15K. So a certain amount of that $15K is going to go into UBI, and a certain amount is going to go to profit to the company. So the people have lost a $30K per year job, because it's being, so that amount is lost being paid to some individual who's supporting their family and doing stuff, let's say $30K per year. So they get a robot who does it for $15K. You take part of that $15K that was won, let's say half. You push that into a UBI, $7K, okay? $7.5K, you push that into a UBI. The Amazon makes $7.5K profit on it. And then so the robots get cheaper and cheaper, more people are laid off, and more $7.5K goes into the UBI. Okay, the 7.5 thousand, so that's 30,000 a year that you have to work for, to 7.5 thousand per year into a UBI that is just free money, okay? It doesn't have to be worked for. So it's it's like 1/5, let's just say roughly 1/5 the money from what it was before that the organizations are paying into the system. So if you just extrapolate that, that means 20% of let's say 80% of all the money going into labor is going to disappear into the pockets of AI companies and people like Amazon that are going to be taking more profit. So that's not good. So this model, I think, is a recipe for disaster, because that's going to incentivize companies to slowly replace their workforces with robots. We're going to get, if we force them, get 20% back in free money to distribute it around the world. and 50% of the world is living so badly already that most of that money is just going to go to them fixing their sewage systems or whatnot. And maybe instead of doing UBI, we just take that money and we start creating clean water and sewage systems and housing around the world, or homeless people everywhere. Maybe we do that instead of just giving UBI to people. You know, we're only going to have 20% of what we had before for people to get fed. And if you'll see, I've done other videos about the fact that redistributing wealth doesn't do anything but destroy the mechanism that gives you a repeated payment. So we can't just redistribute things, and AI is going to do nothing but hurt people even with legislation. Even when we put strict legislation in with these companies to watchdog them, they're going to do everything they can to slip out of it and not pay and change the legal language. They're not going to work with people. They never do. You know, the exceptions do, but not the majority, because they're seeing it as their subsistence, and you can go and die because it's your fault. They're going to fight every step. So there's probably going to be a point where we actually start to see unemployment numbers rise, and that, you know, governments are going to have to come in and stop this process until we figure out how to actually create value to give back to the people. There has to be price controls on the other side too, right? Unless you can lower prices, people can start living on less, and then you can put price controls out there on necessities and lower the prices till they meet in the middle. And 50% of the world is already below poverty level. So I expect sooner rather than later, 50% is just going to grow. That bottom number is going to come up until it's 1% and 99%. So I'll link to the video that I did about the distribution of wealth right now, and at the end of this video, just to say that things don't look well right now. The way the world is, there can't be wars. I mean, anybody that's warring is way off track, because we have to be focusing on coming together under an agreement of universal necessity, and then we have to put these complex controls that have to be worldwide. If I try to control companies in one area in order to feed the UBI effectively, and they just go, no, I don't want to pay, and they move over to another area that doesn't have those controls, we're still back in the same boat where it's, you know, quote unquote survival of the fittest. So that's the way we've been facing it for years with capitalism. It's never stopped. It's always been like that, and it's just gotten worse, and it's been getting progressively worse. It's a really rosy outlook that we're somehow going to overcome that. You know, I mean, AI is a dream, but we don't have the enforcement necessary to actually make it work. And if we can't make it work, if we can't get everybody on board like we've never been able to with anything, then all that's going to happen is the jobs that we need for repeatable payments in order to survive are going to disappear. And the bottom 52% are going to suffer immediately. So that's why I say if we're doing anything, we're going to have to shuttle the UBI to those people that need it the most. So the people in the middle are going to be facing unemployment, and they're not going to get UBI either. So it's going to incentivize people to be poor, honestly. Eating the rich isn't going to help either, because that's just going to create anarchy and destroy the systems. But the problem is the rich are just going to use robots to do their labor. So they're just going to they're going to take their Amazon shipments to themselves by robots with the money that they have. And the rest of us are just going to sit outside some city somewhere with all these drones flying packages everywhere while we starve in the dirt with no sewage and no water. So yeah, we got a lot of work to do, and I'm very skeptical. iRobot, every science fiction movie already told us this was going to happen. Like, it'll all likely go down after I'm gone, but you know, humanity is humanity. We need to save it, and we may need to stop the progress of AI. I love it. I'm enjoying it. I use it now. I use all the image creators and ChatGPT and everything. I love AI. It's so fun. But it's sad. Yeah, it might make you efficient as an individual. Maybe you'll start your own company and compete with everybody the way people always have. But more than likely, it's the people with wealth. I mean, for sure, it's the people with wealth that will benefit the quickest. And then they will take over all the markets, I mean, with it. So anyway, leave your comments down below about what you think about this. We can talk about it. If you guys like this kind of philosophical subject matter, help us out by liking the video and subscribing to the channel.